you.
Hello everyone. I'm thrilled that you're all here to talk about Vinya. If you haven't seen it yet, this sign for Vinya looks like this because of the logo of the lighthouse. So we decided to sign it accordingly. My name is Shane Feldman. I am the director of Vinya. Hello, my name is Joe Kremlinger, and I am the product manager for Vinya. Joe is still in the process of waking up, so forgive him while he holds his coffee and signs at the same time. All right, so we're here today to talk about why Vinya. Vinya is a very big project within CSD now, and we have many different people that are involved and committed to this project. Some are here with us today, sitting and listening. Some of you may be very familiar with Vinya, so what I will be talking about won't be so surprising for you, but some of the more new people here will get an understanding of what we're doing, what our goals are, what we're working toward. You heard Chris talk about two important concepts in the meeting earlier. The first was about the fear of what's out there, the frightening things, the dragon. So now we're using Vinya to look at what is possibly out there, to not be afraid to try new things with our interpreter experience that benefits all of us. And then also the second thing that Chris mentioned was talking about how not only are we looking to improve interpreting experiences for web consumers, but we're looking to revolutionize it, talking about what the ideas are, the thoughts that we have toward the future of the interpreting profession. So, that's what this presentation will address. We have a little bit of history, a little bit of background for Vinya. This picture is Ben Sukup, who was Chris's dad, and he was the first CEO of CSD. His first office was in a closet in South Dakota. When CSD opened, it was one of the first services that provided interpreters, and to this day, we talk about CSD as a 40-year organization with experience, which is a very long time. So this Vinya will continue to innovate in the field of interpreting services to provide top-line quality interpreting services, and how we're in the position to provide that. Chris last year went to a conference for sign language interpreting agencies called Street Leverage. And that's an organization that hosts a conference where they discuss interpreting issues. Chris was the keynote speaker at that particular event. And the message that was left there for these agencies to contemplate was what we do in interpreting services, the actual action of providing interpreting services, such as Steve is here doing today, doesn't change. But we're looking at why we do this, why we are changing. And what is changing, such as Chris mentioned earlier, is the interaction between the deaf person and the hearing person. We want them to be on equal footing so that they both mutually benefit from the experience. It's not just a service for deaf people. The important thing is that the deaf person is able to define and shape what the experience looks like, and that's critical. Now I want to engage you a little bit in the thought process. So I'm going to describe interpreter A. Joe, you're interpreter B, okay? Interpreter A is a recent graduate from an ITP program. ITP is Interpreter Training Program. They just graduated, they got their certification. Their sign language skill is moderate, pretty good. They're not the best, but their attitude is outstanding. Their customer service is top-notch. They are a great person to work with. Interpreter B. Let me give you a vision of Interpreter B. This person is very seasoned. They sign amazingly, but their ethics are sketchy, and they like to gossip. And their attitude is a little bit of a turn-off. They feel like they know better than everyone else about the experience. So let me ask you, if you were to go to a doctor's appointment, which interpreter would you rather have? Interpreter A or B? Which would you prefer? A for your doctor's appointment? Raise your hand. Who prefers interpreter B? Okay. So the workshop presentation like we have today, would you prefer interpreter A or B? Now remember what A was and remember what B was. Who would prefer A? Who would prefer B? a workplace, a business meeting with your boss, a one-on-one, for your performance evaluation for the end of the year, pretty important meeting. Which interpreter would you rather have with you? Interpreter A? Interpreter B? Okay. What these examples are showing is the preference for each type of interpreter for each experience. Every interpreter brings something different to the table. You have to decide which one is appropriate for which situation. That's critical. And we know a lot of us have tools at home that we have in a little container. Different types of wrenches, different types of screws, screwdrivers. Why do we have those? Because each job requires a different type of tool. The same applies to interpreters. So let me share with you a personal experience of my own. This is a picture of me at the international conference in Turkey, where I was giving a presentation about the importance of customer choice and why it's important. At that conference, I had one interpreter there who's in the corner of the screen, around about here. The interpreter was there. Of course, you're not able to see who the interpreter was, and I actually don't want to identify them anyway. This interpreter I have worked with in the past. My opinion is that this person is very autistic, has a very autist attitude, very, very much looks down on deaf people. So I asked this person several times, please do not work for me anymore going forward. I would rather work with another interpreter. However, this interpreter continued to show up to assignments for me at conferences, at business meetings, at different events. This interpreter was still showing up wanting to interpret for me. And I said, you need to stop, until finally at this conference, I was giving a presentation talking about the importance of consumer choice, and this interpreter showed up for me. That shows the importance of consumer choice, and let me explain why. During my presentation, I felt, I was excited to give this presentation. I was enthusiastic. My mind was going. One side of me was thinking about my problem with this interpreter, and then the other side of me was thinking about giving my presentation. Why should I have to be thinking about what the interpreter is doing in front of me? So that was important, that I controlled my communication experience, and I had to divert my mind from that to think strictly about my presentation. And that's why something like that is important. Joe, you have a story? Yeah. I used to work for a defense contractor, and many times I'd go to meetings and not really care about what the interpreter looked like in general. But I have noticed where I used to work, I wanted an interpreter to look tough, because I was working with a lot of veterans, former people, military war people that had fought, and so I just figured if I had an interpreter that was not tough looking, that would reflect upon me. So I preferred having an interpreter that was a little bit more tough, rough around the edges looking, so that I would be seen more on equal footing with the rest of those guys. The moral of the story is that it's a very personal experience for us. Now, as far as personal experience in interpreters goes, it's very important that you remember, in order to change how people behave today, how we get interpreting services, how we get interpreters to behave toward us, has to change the experience. If we introduce a new experience to them, new ideas to them, a new way in which to go about things, their values change. And then when their values change, they realize that they can have a new experience, and that then leads to action. And then that leads to a better result. So it's important that you remember these things. The reason why we're building Vinya is to change the experience with interpreting services, so that eventually that leads to the outcome that we want to see in the interpreting community. Two critical concepts that drive Vinya. The first is Universal Dirksen Baumann. He's a very famous, well-known worldwide. He came up with the concept of the deaf lens. What the concept basically means is that deaf people have a unique view of the world, as opposed to a hearing person. So what we do, what we build, is based on our experiences via our lens. So what we do is going to be based on it. And so the most critical thing is that deaf people are very visual. Everything that we see in the world is based on what we see. In the world is based on vision, what we see. And deaf gain is the other concept. What we do to contribute to Vinya, our innovations of services, is not only to benefit the deaf world, but the hearing world, such as captioning, for example. The deaf community has pushed for innovation, and we came up with the concept of captioning. We were the very first group to do it. And as a result of inventing captioning, now we see the world at large taking captioning and taking ownership of it as part of what they do on a daily basis for business. For example, Google, they use that search engine for all of the videos now that they have. So for us to be able to build Vimeo, we have to think about what can we build that will influence the world to think differently based on our deaf lens, what we see, and deaf gain, and how that can benefit them as well. So here we have spoken language agencies, and I'll tell you that what happens within spoken language agencies is not the same as what takes place within interpreting agencies in our community. They're very business-oriented, very transactional relationships. Ours is far more personally based in building individual relationships, and how they can provide better services to spoken languages in the world is the way they do things more. And then when we talk about critical foundational pieces for Vinya, one of the things that we believe is that one of the most critical parts of the interpreting experience is trust. That's what leads to the best communication experience. And there's 3 foundations that are built with trust. The first is certification. Since day one, CSD has always believed in 100% certification of interpreters. Since day one in South Dakota, and to this day we still believe that. That's part of Vinya's mission. Communication and choice. And we'll go a little bit more in depth into detail about those 2 things. Certification, you can go ahead to the next slide. There's actually 3 parts to certification. The first one is actual certification to demonstrate minimum qualifications. It does not mean you're qualified to meet every need. It means you meet the basic minimum expectations of an interpreter in the field. And the defense of that is, remember this situation? The Mandela funeral? What happened in this scenario is where we had hearing people hiring someone who they believed was qualified to interpret. Are hearing people the best ones to determine the right interpreter? The answer is no. They don't know. They don't have the tools in place to make a decision about what's appropriate. And that's why certification is important, and that's how you can defend it. People think, oh, in South Africa, that's there. This will never happen in the US, but it does happen here. It's the type of situation, for example, oh, I know sign language, I can finger spell, and I can sign a little bit. So they go into a doctor's office and say, hey, let me work for you. The doctor says, oh, great. So they call this person for an appointment. We hear horror stories about that all the time. That happens in the community regularly. And even I myself have gone to meetings before. For years I went to AA meetings, and I remember getting a wide swath of interpreters that could barely sign. I never got the full experience of it as a result. The second part of certification is that when you're certified interpreters, you hear many interpreters say, oh, I can earn my CEUs, which means they go to workshops and they earn credits, continuing education units, to be able to guarantee. This ensures that they go to workshops to continue learning. But in the interpreting profession, they could decide to rest, and not do any training and not continue in interpreting as possible. And you know that in the workplace here, everyone has to learn. You have a boss who evaluates you to ensure that you're continuing to improve your skills, to make sure the same thing happens for interpreters. You have the CEU process. And then the final thing is ethics. Suppose you feel an interpreter violates an ethic. What defense do you have? I mean, you can't sue them. That rarely is effective. You could approach RID, BEI, the state governing body, and say, hey, I'm having a problem with this interpreter. We need you to act on this. Those are the 3 most important pieces of why we have certification in place. Choice is the next one. There's actually 2 situations in which you can think of choice. As a deaf person, having the right communication experience. The first one that we'll talk about is VRI, and then the other is on-site. Today at the hospital, we see an increased use of VRI being forced upon deaf consumers, which doesn't give them choice. Is VRI appropriate for every medical situation? The answer is no. First, I can give you some stories. There's one story of a woman who was going through a cancer procedure, and they put her on the gurney, and then they had a TV screen up above her. She was not able to move her head to even see it. And it was, first of all, 2D, but it didn't really fit the need. She didn't understand what was going on during the operation because she wasn't able to turn her head on the gurney. Maybe some situations in which the other person is disoriented. They don't know what's happening. Is it a good idea to have somebody on a TV signing at them? I've heard some stories in which there were a mentally challenged patient who didn't know the difference between reality and what was not real. And then they see a TV screen with an interpreter coming up. They don't know if that's even a real person or not. So you can imagine other situations in which VRI would not be appropriate. So that experience has been forced upon us, and we believe that the consumers have the right to choose what is the most appropriate scenario, the most appropriate accommodation. For example, she goes for physical therapy, Rebecca goes for physical therapy, and she thinks, I'm going to get VRI, I'm comfortable with that. So she chooses that. While Maria wants to go, and she says, no, I'm not comfortable with VRI, I really would prefer, I have to sit down on a wall and roll my leg, I'd rather have a real life interpreter. So there's different solutions for each of you, and you get to determine what best suits your needs. So we believe that many people within the deaf community are resistant to VRI because of the experience of having it forced upon them. Once it becomes a choice, they would be more amenable to trying something new with VRI and trying to use it in different situations. There's actually been research done by a woman, an interpreter. Her name is Pamela Collins, and this quote here was the role of schedulers. Schedulers at interpreting agencies are the person who receives the phone call from a doctor's office or from any other employer or business that says, hey, we need to schedule an interpreter. The first priority is to fill the assignment. Now, many agencies are going to say, oh, we will support customer preference. We will let the deaf person choose their interpreter. But does that actually happen in practice? The answer is no. The most important thing is satisfying all of the needs that they get phone calls for. So today we've got Ivy and Rebecca who work right now at CSD, and they fill jobs. And I can tell you that their goal right now is to call and find the first available interpreter to fill the job. Am I right? So what type of problems can that lead to? The crapshoot. You don't know who you're going to get. Honestly, I would rather have Stephen for every job that I have going forward with CSD. I wish I could, but sometimes I don't know who I'm going to get when I request to an agency. With CSD, at least I can control the experience. Do you have anything? I forgot my story. No, just play the video. So Stephen, our star here, is here. I think we can all agree that we would choose Steve, right?
Yeah.
So the next most important part of building trust with the interpreting experience is communication. Now, it's easy to say that any good qualified interpreter can provide service and it will be an excellent experience, but that's not true. When you go to a job, a lot of communication requires work to take place before and after. So, for example, here's an example of Vineyard before, what it looked like. This was built in. Sometimes things such as I would give Stephen my PowerPoint before I would get ready to give a presentation to help him mentally prepare to voice better for the assignment. It's possible that his performance today could be maybe 90 to 95% accurate, but if I were to give him the PowerPoint beforehand, he'd probably up in the higher 98, 99% range of accuracy. So really, there's little things like that that make a difference, and it's important to remember that. And for me, I used to work, and we had a lot of very stringent security requirements before interpreters could come into the base. But because we have a lot of acronyms, which were very important for interpreters to be aware of before they came into the assignment. Maybe they would like to say the acronyms as real words, and that gets tricky. I'll give you another example. There was some confusion between interpreters and one team interpreter, where there was some confusion about where VRI would be taking place, and so the interpreter was ready to provide support for the job, and the team was like, well, where's the interpreter? So they contacted Rebecca, found the link, and then were able to connect with the interpreter, but that created the perception that it wasn't there. So if there was someone that was there and ready on time, it was still a bit of a communication breakdown. So the result of the situation was not because of the interpreter failing to meet expectations or the team failing to communicate. It was more of there was just no system in place to be able to support that. Had they had a system in place to support each other, it would have been far more efficient. So I used to work for RID, the Registry of Interpreters for the Deaf, and I got an ethics complaint every week, maybe an average of one time a week. And I would always look at the ethical situation, and most times what I would see was not really the fault of the deaf person or the fault of the interpreter, it was a system breakdown. There was no tool to be able to link up with each other. And so ethics complaints would go down dramatically were we to have a system in place like that to support it. And not only before the job, but also after the job. For example, after today, or let me give you a scenario. Typically, deaf people, most of the time, when they have completed an assignment or working with a hearing interpreter, if the job is finished, what happens? Do you go up to the interpreter and say, hey, you did a good job, well, let me give you some feedback? No, we don't. We don't do that. We go to a doctor's office. Once the appointment's done, we take off right away. So who's the user of the services? The deaf person and the hearing person. The interpreter's oftentimes not getting feedback from us. You know, you go to a job every day, you get feedback from your boss. But interpreters don't get that from us. So it's important to have some sort of better communication mechanism in place to be able to connect with this interpreter and say, hey, good job, thank you for that. But by the way, your position where you were standing was not the most optimal. Maybe next time you can move over to the left a little bit. Or the sign you used, let me recommend you use a different sign for this word. Feedback like that. I mean, I used to work, like I said, for RID, and in my travels across the United States, I would speak with interpreters from those that had the best experience with different deaf people were those that got feedback. You know, community, you operate in your own worlds, and deaf people a lot of times are not a part of it. So I think building that bridge is one way, one idea. There's a rating system. So say my job, I give you 5 stars out of 5, or maybe 1 out of 5. If I'm an interpreter, that helps me to think back on my work and realize what I did. And now we'll briefly talk about Vinya. I know some of you may remember that when Vinya launched in 2013, it was called the Marketplace. That idea at the time was to connect customers directly with interpreters, which was an awesome idea. But then later, after time, we started to realize that we were having some issues based on what was happening. We were having a hard time recruiting interpreters. We had about 2,000 names in the system, but about 900 that actually completed their profiles. So getting interpreters wasn't the problem. The problem was linking up interpreters with the consumers and keeping the relationship open with them. Many interpreters would sign on and then say, hey, I'm not getting any work. So we had to have customer service work with them, and we would back up and say, well, where does the relationship happen? And that's at the agency level. So that's what we'll talk about. Why are agencies important? Why have we shifted the focus of Vinya from consumer direct to a more of an agency focus? They have a lot of influence, for one, in what takes place in the community. When CSD took over interpreting from all over, we were not able to have a direct impact on different markets, but agencies can be partnered with them because they live in those respective communities. And it's different. Maybe the Austin community is different from, say, Washington, D.C. If we share the same values, that then helps to promote the values locally at those levels that we can't do. We can do it through video, through media, but at the local level, we need the agencies who have a great deal of power and influence. Relationships with consumers. Agencies oftentimes know consumers very well because they see them daily in the community. They know this deaf person's preferences. They know this interpreter's strength. We know if this interpreter refuses to team with another interpreter, so they're able to make decisions. So they have a lot of knowledge that we don't have. Many agencies also give back to the community. Many of them are nonprofit organizations that provide, for example, what we provide here, case management services, social work services, job placement programs. and they give back a lot to the community. And that money comes from interpreting services and then is then spent back into the community. And also, they have access to far more interpreters than we do. I mean, we had 2,000 total, but combined with all the agencies, they have way more interpreters and more reach than we could ever achieve alone. So that's why we shifted what we did. This is our vision of what we would hope to accomplish with Vinya. We would want to become an innovative platform that supports the deaf community's values, working with partners who share those values. And why that's important is because our sales team have talked with many different agencies, and we've actually decided not to work with some agencies because we felt that agency's values were not in harmony with our own. So we wanted those agencies that do share our same values. For example, in the beginning we talked about one large agency that wanted to work with us, but they said that they were not willing to support certification requirements 100%. So we then decided, well, you're probably not a good fit for us, we're going to move on and not work with them. And that was the commitment to a principle that we have. Now we'll talk about the future. What do we want to see from Vinya? Vinya is the ability to set up a foundation on which we can build more in the future. Now these are our ideas, and I'm sure that you all have ideas yourself, and we'd love to hear them as well. The first is, we have a serious problem in the interpreting community. I used to work at RID, and I was committed to working on it again with CSD. When a student graduates from an ITP program, the best way in which they can prepare themselves to pass the certification test is to work with the community. But at the same time, we have certification requirements that prevent them from going in and interacting with the community and getting the experience they need while interpreting. So it's impossible. It's a no-win situation. How then can we build a bridge from the graduation and certification process into community engagement and learning enough to be ready for certification? Are we building that bridge? We have to figure out how to use Vinya for that purpose. And several ideas that we have, for example, CSD Neighborhood, CSD Learns. We've set up a system in which you can take online videos, online curriculum, or we have mentorship programs available where a deaf consumer can agree to become a mentor to an interpreter. They can meet up with this deaf person and say, hey, I came across this situation this week, what's the appropriate sign for this? You know, you can learn slang words, colloquial things that the deaf community uses that they don't have access to otherwise. Because oftentimes the way they learn that is they can learn stuff through their ITP program or through osmosis, which is where you go out to the community and just absorb, which is the very best way possible. We believe that the VRI experience today is not optimal. Oftentimes, one of the problems is that VRI has a separate scheduling platform. So when we ask interpreters if they're available to use the technology, it can be awkward and not easy to use. It should be a much more seamless process. We're also proud of Vinya because we support up to 4 screens on the VRI platform. Who has used VRI? Have you ever used VRI one-on-one? Or have you ever tried adding a third or a fourth party? The reason why that's valuable is because it allows a team interpreter to be on the call for a long meeting, or for a CDI to be added into the call as well, or for the addition of another hearing person that calls in. So you can actually see body language, you can see, tone a little bit better from someone signing, or you can feel more connected with someone. Oftentimes a deaf person watches an interpreter, we have no idea if that interpreter is accurately reflecting this other person's affect, whether they're angry or excited. So what someone says can be matched with their body language, and if you can see that, it's far more beneficial. One idea that I had after we thought about was that deaf people, let me ask you, when you see an interpreter signing, how long does it take you to determine whether or not they're a good fit for you? Raise your hand if it's about 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes. For you deaf people in the audience, how long does it take you to realize? 10 seconds. 10? 15? 30? 1 minute? 2? More than 2? Okay. What that means is very short amount of time to find the right fit for you. If you could click on a video screen for 1 minute and introduce yourself. Hi, my name is Shane. I am going to be your interpreter today. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. From that brief interaction, I can see, are they meek? Are they assertive? Are they confident in themselves? Do they lack a bit of confidence? How's their posture? What does their clothing look like? Are they dressed well? Do they take the job seriously? Those kind of things help us to make an accurate decision of whether or not the interpreter is good for that situation. And then also this concept extends to, you may assume that an interpreter is an interpreter and therefore they can interpret in any situation, but that's not the case. There are specific skill sets in specialized areas that this person needs. For example, legal interpreters have to have an understanding of corporate proceedings, the jargon, how the process works. If they don't understand it, it's hard for them to interpret it. Same with medical. Same with higher ed, college classes. If you have an interpreter in a physics class that doesn't understand the concepts, that's probably not going to work so well. And then also CDIs, which is obviously a specialist, that person. I'm not sure if any AEs have used an agency, but trilingual interpreters are also a big part of the community today. So when you think about this, you would, for example, if I need an interpreter for my job that has a particular skill set, whether it be in a language content area, you can select them for that job. And that's what the vision of the future is for this. And also before, the job that I had working in the defense industry was really nice to be able to have interpreters that I could use over and over that already had familiarity with all the acronyms, the different labels we use for, war machinery, the rockets, the launcher we were using, helicopters, all of that. So that was nice. And there's also a concept called badges. This is a really cool idea. This will kind of drive the behavior through badges. Let me give you an example. So suppose we have a badge called Community Service Badge. What that means is that you have given 100 hours pro bono of interpreting services in a particular year through Vinya. We can track that. After your 100 hours of pro bono services every year, you get a badge. Which is then, you have incentive to get that because you're able to show your badges as your proof of 100 hours of pro bono service. Another idea we have would be power and privilege. I took 5 workshops that were in the field of power and privilege, and I've served at organizations in the community. Different things that interpreters could do to say that if you do that, you get a badge. And then you become a game where you have the motivation to, I'm sure many of you have played the game on the iPhone, where you get motivated to meet specific goals of the game and a certain amount of money or coins you get or whatever. This would be a very similar way to motivate interpreters to meet specific targets. Level 80 interpreters. And so we'll talk a little bit about further now into the future. So today we have on-site interpreters, we have VRI. With VRI, we have to look at a screen. It's not a 3D person. So we have to look from the person on the screen to the person speaking. So we have a concept here called augmented reality. What we have today that's already out and available, an iPad, for example, that has a camera that shows the rest of the room behind us. And that would be perfect to have the interpreter right on the screen with the background so that you don't have to, you're all in the same visual field. You don't have to move your eyes from one place to the other. So that's a really neat feature, and that's something that we envision in the future. Should we build a platform with that idea, we can build that ourselves. And that's what we want to see happen. But do you feel like this would be a little bit distracting? What bothers you about this picture? Right. Ivy's right. Holding it. Imagine having to hold something like this for an entire presentation. What might be better than this? Let's see. Contact lenses. Maybe in the future of augmented reality, we have a contact lens where you just look and see the interpreter anywhere you go. They're just always in your eye, right at the bottom. That's pretty cool. Who wants that? But there's a challenge with this. What is the problem with this? That's right. I can see, but how do I reply back? Who has the idea for that? A camera. following you. We'll wait for you all to come up with the idea and then tell us so we can put it in our design plan. But yeah, and then hopefully you'll be here to build it for us. We're added to our to-do list. So who's the team leading this? Some of them are clearly here today. We have our account executives. We have Alex, Sunny, who work on the project. Would you mind standing, both of you, please? Alex and Sunny. Cheers for them. These two are responsible for getting customers and then supporting customers to have a great experience. Product manager over here, Joe. He's figuring out how to make sure that our team all works cohesively with all the other team. Customer representative Ivy and Rebecca, stand up, you two. Today they scheduled all the interpreters. They know all the ins and outs of Vinya, and so when we change over to supporting customers full time, they'll be able to know how to explain everything to them. Software development. Who's the guys here from the software team? Lenny and you all stand up. Wow. Looks like the guys' full team isn't here. I'd like to take a moment to thank all of you groups. I know that it's not easy. It's very challenging. It has been for the past couple of years. First we were greenfielding, then we were building the product, and then our customers have experienced a huge difference. What we see ourselves and what the customers see, they're so excited about it. So thank you all for your time and your commitment to it. Vinya would not be possible without all of the awesome support and commitment of our software development team. So simple as that. Thank you guys. And creative, we have a few people here from creative. I see, darn, they are not. They're busy. But the creative team is very important to help us communicate with interpreters, with customers. You saw that beautiful video that Steve was in earlier. That was made by the creative team, and that was important to help us get the message out about Vinya. And then finally, we have the CEO's office. Chris is here. Pat's somewhere wandering about. He's always somewhere. So the two of them are really very supportive in making sure that what happens, happens. And the restructuring is a big part of that. Thank you, Chris, for your leadership there. And also our lawyers, Faye. I'm sorry, I didn't include you in there. And Maria. I didn't include them. I was a bit remiss. I'm sorry about that. I owe the two of you guys something now, don't I? And the finance department as well. All of you. Maria and Faye are responsible for all of the contracts, and I was just having a conversation yesterday. The biggest challenge for them is predicting what might come up, and then trying to write a contract that reflects it. And it's impossible to do that. But, you know, by the time we get there, then the contract becomes obsolete and we have to change it again. So, now here at our agency, we are really excited. We've gotten 10 agencies that are in Vinya right now. So thank you for all of your support, these agencies here. These are the pioneers in making Vinya happen. Now I'm going to ask you guys the same 3 things I asked you to do. If you know any agencies, please recommend that they reach out to us, either to Alex or to me. Make sure they reach out. Not every agency is going to be a perfect fit for Vinya right now as is, but we're building it to get there. So we can evaluate them, we can talk with them, decide if they're right for it, and then we can get them on board. Interpreters. Our supply of interpreters is a critical piece of the selling point for the agencies. They need interpreters. They're always looking for certified interpreters. And so the more interpreters we have in Vinya, the more we're able to do. And then finally, what we're doing today is the value that Vinya brings. Sharing it, talking about consumer choice, communication access, before and after a job, certification requirements. Some of the ideas that we have in the future, please share with the community. We want to be able to change the way we think. As Chris mentioned earlier in his address this morning, it's about changing the consumer experience. So we invite you to be a part of that. Thank you. So we have 5 minutes left, so I would invite any questions. I would ask that the first question from Ron. Ron, did you have a question? Yeah, I'm really excited. The first thing is I'm really excited and looking forward And I know you've talked a lot about predictability in the future, what Vim is going to look like, and that's exciting, right? We can see, like, you know, the BRI screens and integrating a person, live interpreter on the screen. One question I have for internal communication is that how do we know what's going to be going on toward that end goal? Like full communication, updates about Vim and the improvements and enhancements. Well, communication, we do have periodic bi-weekly release notes where we make upgrades to our system. Sometimes we do like things like letting the agencies know what changes they may expect within the following week. But I think for, just in general, for the greater community, no, that's Shane's thing. I think for CSD, for the team, we've got Sunny who's responsible for all of the internal communication, which means that whatever he learns, whatever is coming soon, he is responsible for sharing within CSD as it gets closer. But I think a long-term goal, a good point you've made, Gunn, is how we can look at describing what we're working on, what we're trying to meet on our roadmap, like with CAG, for example, and then we had choice, and then for level 3, 4, and 5, we talked about how we envision the future. And maybe you might say it seems like a little bit of a short-term solution, which it kind of is, but right now we're trying to focus on building the support of the customers. But the goal is to eventually have a long-term plan in place where we can look 1 year or 2 years into the future and let people know ahead of time what's going to be happening before it actually does. Sunny? And then creative is also on the distribution list of the information I give out to them. Yeah. Sunny said he's working on a distribution list to give to our customers, to interpreters, and also to agencies to inform them about any changes or enhancements that may be coming. Brandy? When we first opened Vimeo several years ago, we looked at the biggest competitor, which was LinguaBee. And since that time, we have changed to the more agency-centric model now. So are we still doing LinguaBee as a competitor? That's a great question. We actually have 2 types of competitors. The first group of competitors would be our platform competitors. For example, Interpreter Intelligence, GridCheck, ERSP, which is another scheduling platform that an agency can purchase. Those would be our competition to sell, to make sure that our system would be able to top theirs. Ours is based on the deaf lens, mind you. So then the second group of competitors is how we ensure that our agency partners are competing with places like LinguaBee, with Sorensen, which is now getting into community interpreting. Also Stratus Video. How do we ensure that the agency can compete with them? So we have 2 different types of competition that we're facing. And our primary is the scheduling platform for now to ensure that the agencies are competitive with those other companies, such as LinguaBee, Stratus, and whatnot. Would you mind just one more question? One final question, anyone? Yeah.
Let me decide. At the beginning of the presentation, you emphasized the features of Marketplace, like consumer choice and reviews. And since we closed Marketplace and we're agency focused, we've lost those customer-centric features. Like they must interact through the agency. Even though Vimeo has interpreter choice, it's agency-facing, not customer-facing. So this year, will we emphasize more customer-facing features and even potentially get a client-facing app back so that those features that were great about Marketplace can be restored to the current version?
Yeah, I'm happy you asked that question. Our overriding priority right now is how can we meet the minimum needs of the agency to continue the schedule and platform operations. But the goal is always to make it consumer-centric, the system, how to be able to support the consumer experience. So what we're telling agencies right now is what we have in Marketplace, the principles there, how do we then transplant those over to the technology, to the new agencies to be able to run themselves. So our goal is to build it back in, yes. And you're going to make that happen with your guys' help too, and the whole software. Thank you, everyone.